Good morning, sir. Good morning, classmates. I'm Rona G. Avila, the first reporter of Group 3. Our topic is all about the stages of environmental impact assessment process. So, I have a video about environmental impact assessment.
Environmental Impact Assessment. What is Environmental Impact Assessment? A study to identify, predict, evaluate, and communicate information about the impacts on the environment of a proposed project and to detail out the mitigating measures prior to project approval and implementation. The evolution of environmental impact assessment. Environmental impact assessments commenced in the 1960s as part of increasing environmental awareness, especially in U.S. and other industrial industries. Due to these environmental concerns, in the early 1970s, environmental impact assessment was first introduced. Then, in 1970s to 1980s, the scope became bigger in order to cater the environmental issues. In mid to late 1980s, the process of environmental impact assessment was strengthened with the integration of the policy. And in mid-1990s until now, the focus of the environmental impact assessment is towards sustainability. Objectives of environmental impact assessment: to modify and improve design, to ensure efficient resources use, to enhance social aspects, to protect human health and safety, to identify the key impacts and measures for mitigating them, to inform decision-making and condition setting, and also to avoid serious and irreversible damage to the environment.
Why environmental impact assessment is important.
Of course, environmental impact assessment is important. It ensures that the potential problems are foreseen and addressed at an early stage in the project planning and design. I will give you an example. A forest is a complete ecosystem, which provides food, shelter to a wide variety of species. It provides firewood, timber, water catchment area, medicinal herbs, and so on, to us humans. Whenever a project is undertaken which demands clearing of the forest, like construction of road or a dam, environmental impact assessment helps us to assess the impact of that activity on this lifeline. It is also suggests mitigation plans from this assessment.
So, what are the benefits of environmental impact assessment?
There are several benefits of this assessment. Firstly, it is environmentally sound and sustainable design. Better compliance with the standards. Savings in capital and operating costs. Reduced time and costs for approvals. Increased project acceptance. And also better protection of the environment and human health. Thank you for your attention. See you again in the next video. Screening marks the start.
So, we proceed in the first step of EIA assessment process. First is screening, and here is the video of screening.
Screening marks the start of the Environmental and Social Impact Assessment, or ESIA procedure. Its purpose is to determine whether a project requires an ESIA. It is important to screen as early as possible so all stakeholders are aware of ESIA requirements and their roles and responsibilities. An early start also ensures that the outcomes of an ESIA process are in time to influence and improve project design. Screening begins when the proponent submits a proposal to the ESIA authority, including a description of the proposed activity, its location, and possible impacts. The authority screens the proposal using the method specified in the ESIA regulation. This may be a selection list, case-by-case screening, or a combination of both. After screening is carried out, the authority publicly announces its decision if and what type of ESIA is needed. If screening is carried out properly, only projects with significant impacts go through the ESIA process. This ensures an efficient use of resources and prevents overburdening the capacity of the ESIA authority. And if an ESIA is necessary, everyone is now set to start defining the scope.
And the second stage is scoping. And this is the video of the scoping process.
Scoping is a critical step in an environmental and social impact assessment, or ESIA. After determining that an assessment is needed during screening, scoping aims to identify the issues that really matter. Typical questions asked during scoping include: what does the project aim to achieve? What people and what area will be affected? How will stakeholders be involved? What are the potential impacts? Are there alternatives that have environmental and social advantages? Scoping is a creative and participatory process that helps to focus on the relevant impacts. If the focus is too narrow, the ESIA might miss important impacts or will be less convincing. If the focus is too broad, the ESIA will take unnecessary time and money. The result of scoping is usually a terms of reference for the next steps in the process. It will guide in drafting the ESIA report and serve as a framework for reviewing the quality of both the process and report. If scoping is done well, it'll contribute to an efficient and successful ESIA.
So that's all my part of our report. Thank you for listening.
Good day everyone. This is my assigned topic. My topic is preparing final EIA implementation of EIA decision. Preparing final EIA. These steps produce the viewpoints and comments of the parties that review the drafts. So, in these comments may prompt revisions of additions to the text of the draft EIA. In some cases, the final EIA will contain an appendix summarizing all the comments received from the public and the other interested parties, and provide responses to to these comments. Next is decision. A decision to approve or reject a mining of project generally based and on the final EIA, but in some instances an environmental clearance may be just one step in the mine permitting process. So the decision may be accompanied by certain condition that must be fulfilled, such as pasting a reclamation bond or willing an environmental plan. Administrative or judicial review. Depending on the jurisdiction, there may be opportunities for a party to seek administrative and or judicial review of the final decision and the EIA process. So administrative or judicial review. An appeal may address procedural flaws in the EIA process, such as failure to hold any required public hearing, or may point to substantive issues that the decision maker failed to consider. A country's judicial review of Administrative Procedure Act, or sometimes the EIA laws itself, will usually identify the kinds of issues that can be raised in an appeal, at the type of relief that may be granted. Project's implementation. Provided all regulatory requirements are met and permit are obtained, mine development will proceed following the project decision, and once opportunities for administrative and once judicial review are exhausted. Project implementation. So all of the documents are provided, and the permits are obtained, and the development of the project will continue. Monitoring is an important part of project implementation. Monitoring services their purposes: ensuring, evaluating, validating. In monitoring, there are three purposes. So the first is ensuring that required mitigation measures are being implemented, and the next one is evaluating whether mitigation measures are working effectively. And the last one is validating the accuracy of models or projections that were used during the impact assessment process. So that's all for my assigned topic.
Hi everyone, by the way, I'm Sheila May Binsig and I am the reporter. So our topic is all about the stages of the environmental impact assessment process. So what are the stages of the environmental impact assessment process? So under of this, the administrative or judicial review, project implementations, and monitoring. So what is administrative or judicial review? So judicial review by the court of the lawfulness or the legality of the decisions of an administrative body In this case, the AAT or CAT. So in other words, whether the decision maker, often a tribunal member, had the power to make that decision, and if they made it fairly without error of the law. So we have grounds of judicial review includes but are not limited to: 1. No jurisdiction. So whether the decision maker had the power to make the decisions. 2. Error of law. So misunderstanding or misapplication of the law. Improper exercise of power. Taking into account irrelevant consideration. Failing to take into account relevant considerations. And improper purpose. Where a decision or action whilst on its face may be proper under the law, is designed to achieve a purpose beyond the responsibility of that government body. Next is unreasonableness. So this is a decision to tainted that no other reasonable decision maker would have reached it. Next is bad faith. Bad faith is where a decision is affected by corruption, bribery, dishonesty, or similar malpractice. Next is no bias rule. So decision must be free from bias. Next is natural justice. This is to be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard and have a decision maker who is free from actual bias or that appearance of bias. Next and last is a fair hearing rule. A person must be given fair and reasonable warning of the hearing so they have sufficient time to prepare and present other case. Next is project implementation. So, project implementation is not the final stage, but it decides whether your project is successful and practically possible. So, if you are doing a client project, this is the example, by the way. So, if you are doing a client project, the opposite party expect the execution to work finely. A small mistakes can be accepted, but significant drawbacks may lead to failure. So, remember that project implementation is about delivering the idea of the project and executing the whole matter. So the best practice that can in handy in the process of project implementation are: 1. Defining clearly the project scope while planning the project. 2. Having all the desired outcomes, structures, and a visual timeline. 3. Show the readiness to tweak the plan all along the way. 4. Keeping a close eye on the performance metrics of the staff. 5. Conduct quality checks periodically. So a proper structure comes in handy to trace the completions of the project step by step. So, monitoring. Monitoring provides data on the environmental and social impacts of the project for the whole project lifetime. So, specifically, the information collected during monitoring activities helps to ensure that the priorities listed in the Environmental Management Plan or EMP, mitigation measures, and contingency plans are properly implemented, and that these plans and measures are effective in addressing the project impact. So next is why conduct monitoring? Monitoring is critical to ensuring the fulfillment of all the commitments made in the approved EIA. It is one of the ongoing outcomes of EIA for given project. Monitoring is also important for keeping track of any changes that happens in the environment and in communities because of the project and other local and or global events such as changes in livelihoods due to economic crisis or migrations or differences in water availability due to drought. So next is okay, that's all.